Welcome to the Brand and Market Podcast, where branding clarity meets marketing strategy. I'm your host, Allie Haney, founder of Brand and Market, a boutique agency dedicated to helping small businesses craft intentional brands and effective marketing plans. Each week, I share practical tips and insights to help you, especially those of you in real estate-related industries, build a standout brand to attract your brand's biggest fans. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of the Brand and Market Podcast. I'm your host, Allie Haney, and today I'm going to tell you about one of my secret weapons that I use in my business. And that secret weapon is AI. So I know that I've done an episode on AI in the past, and I gave you guys a glimpse into how I use AI within my own business. But now I'm going to change gears just a little bit and help you figure out how exactly you as a realtor can use AI in your business. First, I want to just say that it's not nearly as scary as it sounds. I know I was resistant to using AI in the beginning as well. In fact, one of my best friends, Cassie O'Driscoll, she was the one who kind of, I don't want to say pushed me towards using AI, but definitely strongly encouraged it. And I had a lot of hesitancies about it. I just thought that it felt like it was cheating in a way. Coming from a teacher's background, especially an English teacher's background, it felt like I was almost like plagiarizing my work because it was cutting out so much time in my workflow and my planning process. And so I was hesitant at first. However, I have since realized that it's not cheating. It is using your resources wisely. And the reason that I feel like I've kind of reconciled it in my mind, one of the reasons is that really the output that you get is only as good as the input that you put in. So 2 people can, 3 people, 5 people can put in the same, thought in their own words and get 5 different answers. So it's really not plagiarizing. It is finding a way to expedite a process that's already going to be taking place. With that being said, I'm going to jump into a couple different AI tools that you can use within your real estate business. So the first is going to be ChatGPT or Gemini. They are pretty similar in my experience. ChatGPT and Gemini are both free to use. I do know with ChatGPT, there is a paid version that you can get. However, I use ChatGPT almost every single day. I've never paid a dime for it in my life, and it has really given me all of the functionality that I need. So I don't know that I would encourage you to purchase the paid version right off the bat. But like I said, they are pretty comparable. I have found that Gemini is sometimes a little bit more intuitive than ChatGPT is, but I've encourage you to test out both and see which one kind of jives with the way your brain works. Because although they are similar, they have very subtle differences. But because I use ChatGPT most often, that's kind of what I'm going to be using as reference for this episode. So as you guys know, I own a branding and marketing agency. So that's the capabilities that I know the best. That's the inputs that I know the best when it comes to AI. So if you're using your AI as your marketing assistant, first, I want you to get inside of your brain that this AI is not going to be your CMO. It's not going to be the one that's creating the marketing strategy for you. You are ultimately the puppeteer and AI is the puppet. So think of it more as your marketing intern or your marketing assistant. It's going to be there to brainstorm ideas with you. It's going to be there to give you frameworks, but in terms of execution and in terms of strategy, you are going to be the one that is doing all of that legwork. What I do whenever I onboard a new client is I do a very short introduction. I type into ChatGPT the introduction and a little small bio about the business itself. So, for example, if you are a real estate agent in Austin, Texas, then I would say I'm a real estate agent in Austin, Texas. My ideal client is X, Y, and Z, let's say luxury home buyers. And I am looking for marketing help to market my current business? What other information do you need from me in order to be a successful marketing assistant? So you kind of turn the tables back on the AI, right? And you ask what that AI is going to need in order to be successful. I have found that this is very, very thorough. So most likely what they're going to ask is, what is your brand's mission? What are your brand's values? What is your brand's voice? How do you want the copy, any copy that I might write for your business, how do you want it to sound? What is your main source of leads? When your clients close on a property, what is their main feedback? What are the positives that they have to say about your business? What are the negatives they have to say about your business? What is the typical price range for the clients that you are working with? Are there any commonalities between the properties that your clients are looking for when they come to you? So it's going to ask you these very, very thorough questions all about your brand and its current existing marketing. Then from there, I want you to put in what your, let's say, top 3 goals for the next 6 months are in terms of marketing your business. I want you to ask the AI. First, I want you to tell it, these are my top 3 goals. I want to build my email list by 500 subscribers. I want to increase brand awareness through use of social media. And I want to begin to learn how to use paid ads for my business. Okay, so you now told the AI your 3 goals for the next 6 months. And then I want you to ask, what is the best first step to take in order to achieve these goals? Okay, so you can see how it is essentially a brainstorm session with the AI to make it your marketing assistant. I will say, side note, I always say thank you and please to my AI assistant. Remember, Cassie was the one that got me on to the AI train a long time ago, probably almost 2 years ago now. And she lovingly named ChatGPT Chad. So we often refer to him just as his first name, which is Chad. So if you hear me slip and say Chad throughout this episode, that's who I'm referring to. It's ChatGPT, not some random dude that is a bro from college. You can see how we are making Chad into our marketing assistant by showing him very specific inputs so that we can get very specific outputs. Because remember, your outcome, the answer that Chad gives you, is only going to be as good as the information that you put in. Now that we have established our goals for the next 6 months, I want to actually get to the nitty-gritty of planning out your content, of using AI to make your life a little bit easier. The first thing that I want to touch on is that you can tell Chad exactly which platforms that you're on, exactly what you want to do with those platforms. And then from there, Chad can help you create a content bank that can be used across all platforms. The way that I plan the content, not only for my business, but also for my clients' businesses, is in this waterfall pattern. So I have one big long form piece of content, and that piece of content is the content that's on my podcast. After that, it trickles down the different platforms week by week. So if it's on my podcast, the next week it'll be on my blog. The next week it'll go out in an email newsletter. The following week, Instagram. The next week, Facebook. The next week, Pinterest, and the final week, LinkedIn. So that content now gets a close to 6-week life cycle as opposed to putting all of that content on one platform and blasting it out over a week just for it to kind of shrivel and die and never be seen again. It elongates that life cycle. So with that being said, I will put that into ChatGPT and ask, can you please generate a spreadsheet with content ideas for the next 6 weeks based around enter any type of topic. That could be for a realtor, first-time home buyers, people looking to sell their homes, for people looking to relocate to the Austin area from elsewhere, right? You can fill in the topic wherever it might be to be able to generate that content plan for the next 6 weeks. From there, if you wanted to create even more of a specific plan, like captions for Instagram or the writing out the blog post itself, okay, you can do that. You can say, pull out, I want to write a blog for first-time home buyers, everything that they need to know, the top 5 things they need to know. All right, so now you're pulling out that topic. You're saying, hey, Chad, can you write a 750-word blog post about 5 things that a first-time home buyer needs to know before buying their home? I want the tone to be in my brand voice, which is encouraging, uplifting, and positive. So then it spits out this 750-word blog post. But I really encourage you not to just copy and paste that. Remember, I said we're not plagiarizing, but we're also not wanting to just add to the AI noise that's online. We want to make it as tailored not only to our own brand voice, but also to appeal to our ideal client as best as possible. So for sure, read that 750-word blog post before you go and post it on your website. So now that you have that long form piece of content, you can then say, I would like to create 3 Instagram posts using the content from this blog post. You can give it specific character amounts. You can give it specific which paragraphs you want to pull from. And from there, you then have 3 Instagram captions that you can use for social media that correspond with that blog post. So you can see how it makes repurposing content or elongating the life cycle of the content much easier than having to do that by hand. I also mentioned that I utilize email marketing for not only myself, but many of my clients. Once you have that blog post of 750 words, you can then repurpose that blog post into an email newsletter. What I would say specifically for that is that when you say, I want to repurpose this blog post into an email newsletter, I would add specifically with a call to action at the end so that you can have the people that are receiving your email newsletter actually have something to do at the end of the email and they're not just swiping it away and archiving it. Don't know where to start with email marketing? Not tech savvy, but still want pretty emails for your subscribers? Then Flodesk is your answer. One of my favorite parts about Flodesk is that it's really beautiful for both the business owner and the client. The client sees well-designed, eye-catching emails that actually makes them look forward to you popping into their inbox. But also on the back end, it's really easy to create funnels and segment customers. This was what I was most intimidated about when first starting an email list, and Flodesk took care of all of that. If you'd like 50% off your first year's subscription to Flodesk, simply go to allierayhaney.com/Flodesk to sign up and get your email list started today. I'm sure by now you can see how beneficial it can be, AI can be, as a tool in your tool belt when you are marketing your real estate business. Let's keep going with a couple more examples. One of which that I think many realtors, when they first start their business, they don't actually sit down and do, and that is identifying your ideal client or your ideal client avatar, target audience. A lot of different phrases are used to mean the same thing, but for this episode, I'm going to use the term ideal client. Using AI to really nail down your ideal client is going to be so helpful when it comes to your brand's messaging and ultimately writing copy for any of those online platforms that we've already talked about. What I would encourage you to do, the prompt that I would use is, I would like you to help me identify my ideal client. What are some questions that you need from me to answer in order to get to the bottom of that? And so from there, it's going to give you questions that you might need to supply answers to. For example, who was your favorite client? Describe your favorite client that you have worked with in the last 10 closings. What was their gender? What was their age? What was their family life like? Was it a young family? Was it an older couple that was retiring? So it's going to help you narrow down those different ideal client avatars to be able to kind of put one together for you with a nice little bow on top so that you can then jump into the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is your branding and messaging guide. We've already kind of touched on brand voice, but sometimes your brand voice evolves a little bit as your business grows, and sometimes you never actually sit down and nail down what you want your brand voice to be. So this is a great way, based off of your ideal client description, to be able to nail down the messaging within your real estate business. With that ideal client in mind, you can say, I want my messaging to speak directly to my ideal client, which we have just created together. What tone should I have to be able to address them directly and to get their attention online? What are some recurring phrases, words, or stories that I can use to create my brand messaging guide as well as my brand's story? So, as you're asking those, you actually get that real time feedback based off of the ideal client that the AI already knows is yours. And that's one of the really beautiful things about AI or ChatGPT specifically, is that it actually has a memory. So when you go in and you start a chat about your real estate business, it's going to remember all of those details in 3, 4, 6 weeks whenever you sit down to write your next 6 weeks worth of content. It's going to remember your brand voice. It's going to remember your ideal client. It's going to remember your brand values. And so it keeps all of that in mind as you continue on in this conversation with the AI. From there, you can ask it to create a brand messaging guide that you can then pull out and put into a Google Doc or a Canva graphic, whatever it might work best for you and your business. So if down the road you end up hiring someone on as a real life marketing assistant or a CMO for your business or even a VA in the future, you have those documents to be able to turn over and make that turnover as seamless as possible because all of that is already there, packaged and waiting for you. Okay, remember when I said my top 3 goals? I mean, of course, I was making those up, but I believe the first one was email marketing. The second one was social media. We've touched on both of those. And my third made up goal as a realtor was to start to dabble in paid ads. So you can even ask questions to AI almost as if you are trying to learn about a certain subject. So if you have questions about paid ads, you can ask it specific questions about Meta or specific questions about Google Ads. I will say that in order to get the most up-to-date information that is live on the internet at that moment, that ChatGPT is not always the best resource to use. That doesn't always pull from current online articles or online stats, but there is another one that you can use that's called Perplexity. And that one does pull directly from the current internet as it stands. So if you're doing this type of stuff, I would kind of transition over to Perplexity and see if that works better for you, just to get the most up-to-date information as possible. But here are a couple different things that you can ask. You can ask it to write converting Facebook ad copy targeting first-time buyers in whatever city you're in. So that will help you specifically help get the messaging across not only to first-time home buyers, but also make sure that it's high converting for the ad that you are putting out. While it is still trial and error with paid ads, it's kind of giving you a little bit of a upper leg so that you can make sure that those ads actually convert. One last thing that I want to touch on that you can use AI, how you can use AI as your marketing assistant, is that you can ask it to suggest hashtags or SEO keywords for you based off of your current website. So if you copy and paste your website's URL and stick it right into ChatGPT and you say, based off of my current website, can you recommend, let's say, 10 Instagram hashtags for my Instagram content? Can you recommend 10 SEO keywords that I should try to be ranking for? Okay, so you can use your actual website that already exists to be able to kind of data mine that information and make it useful for you. And that's all without having to do the research or legwork yourself. There are some really great ways to use AI in your business, and I really encourage you to embrace it and kind of play around with it a little bit. I know that I'm going to touch on this one, really quickly, this one other use of AI that's outside of ChatGPT or that language model. But I'm pretty sure that almost everybody has a Canva account or has access to getting a Canva account. So I encourage you to please go on there and kind of play around with some of the AI features within Canva too, because those can be really, really cool. Anywhere from, taking the background out of your photos, that's more of a design feature, but all the way to inserting your brand voice into your brand guide within Canva. I do believe that's a pro feature, but it's really helpful. You can insert your brand voice into your brand kit so that anytime you ask Canva to create copy for you, it knows what your brand voice is supposed to sound like. You can even create images that, for the most part, look realistic. I encourage you to make sure that everyone has, the right number of fingers and the right number of eyes before you actually use that image. For instance, if you are creating an Instagram image and you want specifically a blue house with yellow shutters and a white front door with a family of 5 standing in front of it. Okay, you can create that image on Canva without ever having to have that actual image in front of you to take a picture of it. So use that in order to up-level your Instagram or social media game. And I think it could be incredibly useful. All right, wrapping it up now, just want to kind of touch on a couple of things again. First, the language-based models of AI, the most common ones are ChatGPT and Gemini. ChatGPT is free. I'm going to link both of those in the show notes, as well as Perplexity because I mentioned that, and Canva because I mentioned that. Everything will be in the show notes, but ChatGPT you can use for free, and it is a pretty robust free system. So I really encourage you to get in there and play with it. You can always erase the memory if you feel like you went a different route or the wrong route for your brand and representing it. But just get in there and play with it a little bit. Chad's a good sport. Second, I want to tell you again that the output that you will get from ChatGPT or any AI is only going to be as good as the information that you put into it. So even if you feel like you are oversharing or you are putting in too much information, you're not going to. ChatGPT is very, very good at digesting large amount of information into and distilling it down into the bare bones basics that technology needs in order to get you the result that you're asking for. As always, if you have any questions for me, I would love to answer them for you. You guys know where to find me on social media at brandonmarket.co. Slide into my DMs with those questions. And if you found this episode helpful, share it with a fellow realtor and start exploring AI together. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care, guys. You just completed another episode of the Brandon Market Podcast. If you found this helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find this show and so that you never miss an episode. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for all the resources mentioned today. See you next Wednesday, and as always, I'm here cheering you on as you build your dream brand and business.